We're kicking off a pretty unique journey. We're going deep into some really high-stakes international diplomacy, economic strategy, and, well, some pretty big claims about conflict resolution.
Yeah, and our source material for this deep dive is quite something. It's an unfiltered transcript from a recent White House meeting between former President Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
Exactly. So our mission really is to carefully sift through what they said. It's extensive stuff.
It touches on, everything from peace efforts, global conflicts, even domestic economic policy, and where international relations might be heading.
Right. The idea is to pull out the most important nuggets of knowledge, the key insights, sort of a shortcut for you to get really well informed on these complex talks.
So what can you expect? Well, a conversation hopefully filled with some surprising facts, direct quotes too, giving you a first-hand look at the perspectives shared during this really significant exchange.
Okay, let's jump right in. The diplomatic dance, maybe, how it all started. And there was this unexpected moment pretty early on.
It started warm. Prime Minister Netanyahu began with a very warm welcome, expressing, the transcript says, profound appreciation and admiration for Trump's leadership of the free world.
And specifically his pursuit of peace and security, particularly in the Middle East.
Yeah, and that praise, especially mentioning the Abraham Accords, it's not just, diplomatic fluff. It feels like a strategic signal, doesn't it, about the kind of peace Netanyahu aligns with.
Forged through strength, maybe. Bilateral deals.
Seems like it. Rather than the older multilateral ways, he specifically highlighted Trump forging peace as we speak across, I think the quote was, one country and one region after the other.
Which paints a picture of, well, consistent action from their perspective.
Definitely. And then came that really remarkable moment.
The Nobel nomination.
Right there in the meeting.
Yeah.
Netanyahu presents a letter nominating Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize, saying it's well-deserved and that Trump should get it.
And Trump's reaction, you can almost hear it in the text. This I didn't know. Genuine surprise.
Yeah, he called it very meaningful, especially coming from Netanyahu in particular.
It really shows, beyond the surprise, just how much personal relationships and, public endorsements matter in diplomacy.
Oh, absolutely. Framing that legacy of peacemaking, it's a calculated move, speaks volumes about the optics.
So while they're dealing with these huge international topics, the transcript also gives these little glimpses of more immediate things.
Like Trump pausing to mention a terrible event in Texas.
Right, saying it hurt this state badly and he planned to work with the governor. Visits on Friday. A quick pivot.
And then, almost immediately, back to the situation right then. A security incident in Gaza. Soldiers reportedly injured.
Which naturally led to the question, would this, put a wrinkle in the ceasefire talks?
And Trump's response was pretty striking in its confidence. I don't think so. They want it. They want to have that ceasefire.
Very direct. Then someone else there, described as an expert, called the incident terribly unfortunate, but still hoped for a peace deal very quickly.
So that confidence from Trump, dismissing the wrinkle, what does that signal about his approach, you think? Especially there.
Well, it suggests a belief, maybe, that the core desire for a ceasefire is strong enough to overcome these immediate flare-ups.
Like the ultimate goal outweighs the tactical bumps in the road.
Yeah, focusing on the perceived will of the parties, perhaps downplaying the disruption. It's different from, say, a more traditional approach where every incident could derail things.
Shows that emphasis on decisive, direct engagement he often projects.
And he then linked this to broader claims of past successes, de-escalating conflicts.
He mentioned India and Pakistan, called it a very, very big one.
Said they were nuclear powers, possibly at a nuclear stage, but he stopped the fighting over trade.
That's what the transcript notes, linking it to trade.
Yeah.
He also mentioned Serbia, Kosovo, Rwanda, the Congo.
Claiming de-escalation there happened really fast, within 3 weeks or so.
The transcript doesn't detail how exactly, the specific moves or trade-offs, but it underlines that theme in his rhetoric. Rapid, decisive action, often driven by his personal negotiating style.
Then the focus shifted to Russia and Ukraine.
Which he called, quote, a Biden-created monster, a horrible thing.
And asserted it would have never happened if I were president.
He also mentioned the human costs, lamenting the deaths, 5,000 maybe, 7,000 last week, mostly soldiers, emphasizing their souls.
Again, very direct language, laying out his critical view of the conflict's origins.
Okay, so shifting focus again, the discussion moved to Iran.
Right. Trump claimed Iran took a big dubbing his words after 3 sites were hit.
One apparently obliterated. He praised the military involved.
Mentioned pilots flying for 37 hours with zero problem, carrying the biggest bombs that we've ever dropped on anybody. Non-nuclear, he clarified.
He wanted to keep it non-nuclear. He even compared it to Harry Truman's stopping fighting.
And claimed this strike was the very beginning of the end for the conflict, making Iran very different now than they were 2 weeks ago. That's a bold narrative.
It is. And there was another striking detail he shared about a past missile incident.
Oh yeah, the 14 missiles all shot down.
But what stood out even more was his account of the communication. He claimed they got a warning.
They told us they were coming and where they were and what time they were coming, and even offered to change the time.
He called that respect. That's quite an anecdote.
Yeah, along with mentioning evacuating over 5,000 people from the Qatar base very quickly.
And crediting 3 gunners and 3 assistants for knocking down all 14 missiles.
It's presented as, preparedness plus this unconventional de-escalation, achieving a different kind of respect.
Seems to be the framing. Okay, so from those military and diplomatic claims, the conversation then turned more towards redefining Middle East security.
Specifically, the 2-state solution discussion. Always delicate.
Netanyahu's position was very clear. Palestinians should have all the parts to govern themselves. But, crucially, none of the policies are threatening us, and overall security will always remain in our hands.
That's the line. A non-negotiable point, it sounds like.
And he grounded this stance very firmly in the post-October 7th context, referencing the horrendous massacres.
Describing how Palestinians in Gaza didn't build it up, they built down into bunkers, into terror tunnels.
Followed by horrific details. Massacred our people, raped our women, beheaded our men.
He made a direct comparison to atrocities we didn't see since World War II in the Nazis, the Holocaust.
Which is incredibly powerful language, asserting that because of this, people aren't likely to say, let's just give them another state if it could be a platform to destroying Israel.
And ending with that vow, never again is now.
How does invoking that history, that trauma, shape his security stance? It seems foundational.
Absolutely. It elevates the policy debate beyond just geopolitics. For Netanyahu, as presented here, it becomes about existential survival. This transcript really gives you, the listener, a direct window into that emotional and historical weight behind the policy.
Making it clear that, for him, the 2-state idea is now filtered through that lens.
Exactly. He then talked about the U.S.-Israel partnership.
And specifically the partnership between himself and Trump, saying it produced a historic victory.
He mentioned combining the greatest capabilities of the United States with Israel's strengths, army, pilots, Mossad.
Who set back, as he put it, the 2 tumors that were threatening the life of Israel.
The nuclear tumor and the ballistic missile tumor.
Stressing the need for constant monitoring so those tumors don't return. It really highlights those long-term strategic worries.
So, thinking about the region more broadly, Syria came up.
Netanyahu pointed to big changes there, said Iran was essentially running Syria.
But now, he claims, Hezbollah has been brought to its knees. Iran is out of the picture.
Which, in his view, presents opportunities for stability, for security, and eventually for peace. A significant shift, if accurate.
And connected to this, Trump talked about sanctions.
Yeah, lifting them on Syria, apparently at the request of a lot of countries, including Netanyahu.
To give him a chance at rebuilding.
And he floated a similar idea for Iran, mentioning the very biting sanctions, but saying he'd like to remove them at the right time.
If they change their rhetoric, stop the death to America, death to the USA, death to Israel chance.
Right, allowing Iran to build itself back up in a peaceful manner. He even noted Iran, once the bully of the Middle East, now has such potential with great people.
So it's that strategy again.
Yeah.
Sanctions as leverage for behavioral change with economic opportunity as the carrot.
Seems like it. Okay, so from all that global strategy, the conversation maybe naturally pivoted back home, domestic concern.
Trump started outlining his economic wins as he sees them.
Mentioned a great, big, beautiful bill, called it the largest bill of its kind ever passed.
And highlighted specifics. The biggest tax cuts ever, including no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, and no tax on overtime.
And the impact. He claimed jobs coming in like we've never seen them before.
He specifically mentioned 9 factories that announced that they were building right after the bill was signed. a direct cause and effect claim.
Then he got into a core part of his economic philosophy, tariffs,
Emphasize hundreds of billions of dollars taken in.
and argued that tariffs are actually driving people in and companies into the United States.
Leading to record factory building AI institutions. He claimed over $15 trillion in announced investments just in the last 3 months.
That's a huge number, and it feeds right into his narrative about global perception.
Yeah, that anecdote about leaders from Saudi Arabia, Qatar, UAE, and NATO.
Apparently telling him your country was dead, but now seeing the U.S. as the hottest country anywhere in the world.
He also mentioned NATO allies agreeing to spend $1 trillion a year, claiming it was 3 times what they were spending before.
These stories, straight from the transcript, paint a picture of a major turnaround in economic strength and alliance contributions from his perspective.
The meeting also shed light on some key allies and maybe strategic thinking behind the scenes.
Like former Governor Mike Huckabee, introduced as the ambassador to Israel.
Described as someone who loves Israel even though he isn't Jewish.
And Huckabee apparently praised Trump's historic horizon in the Middle East, believing Trump didn't even fully comprehend the impact he was having.
Shows a perspective of a close ally on the long-term significance.
And then there was that fascinating detail about the pilots.
The ones who conducted the Iran strike.
They apparently told Trump they'd been practicing for this mission for more than 20 years.
Since just after 2000.
Yeah.
And had never had a president that would allow him to do it.
Trump seemed amazed by that, drew a sharp contrast with Jimmy Carter, with the helicopters and all of the problems, and ultimately hostages.
So the narrative there is about a shift in readiness, maybe, and willingness to act on long-standing plans.
That seems to be the takeaway presented. And finally, just briefly, there was that exchange about a New York mayor.
Right. Trump calling him a communist who said some really bad things about Jewish people.
And dismissing concerns about being arrested if he visited. Just a quick flash of domestic politics in the middle of it all.
Yeah, shows how those national and global concerns can kind of intersect, even in these high-level meetings.
So, stepping back, what does this all mean for you, listening? This deep dive into just one meeting transcript, it really shows the sheer breadth of topics these leaders are juggling.
From the fine points of Middle East peace, the big specter of global conflicts, all the way to trade policy details and domestic economics.
And it's a stark reminder, isn't it, how deeply interconnected all these things are.
Absolutely. They shape international relations, sure, but also the daily lives and, frankly, the futures of people everywhere.
It's like a snapshot, a moment where these big claims, these visions for the future, these deeply held beliefs were all laid bare.
Which leaves us with a final thought, something to maybe mull over.
How do these policies we heard about, these claims of decisive action, these visions, how do they shape our expectations for global stability, for economic prosperity, for that ongoing, often difficult pursuit of peace?
What are the longer-term ripples, the implications of these approaches, and how might we see them continue to play out on the world stage? Something to think about.
Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more video podcasts like this.